Hello and welcome to ZeroPoint Energy, with a 0 point what we talk about and just as much energy. I'm Shaun.
And this is Jorge. Unfortunately, we have a lot to talk about.
We do. On this wonderful 4th of July, we are talking about the loss of freedom in the freest country in the world.
So, if there was a way to quantitatively show freedom in the world, maybe you could do it with a basic set of freedoms, like, let's say, Second Amendment, gun freedom type thing, freedom of speech and all that jazz.
I mean, technically we still have all of those, but we've also lost some of our protections for those, but also gained more freedom with those, strangely enough.
It depends how you look at it.
Well, recently, within the last week, the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court of the United States of America, has made multiple rulings that are both good and bad for the history and potential future of this country. One of the big ones is, especially, it pertains to almost every act of Congress for the last 100 years or so, and that is the overturning of the Chevron decision from the 1980s. The overturning of Chevron, or kind of a simplified version of what Chevron did, is it gave federal agencies the power to interpret laws, interpret rulings. So, like, the simplest, it's kind of my go-to simple explanation, very broad stroke, is the Food and Drug Act. Basically says you can't put known harmful substances like borax into meats to use as a tenderizer. Fine, great, wonderful. That makes sense, but they didn't specifically say borax. They said you can't put a harmful substance knowingly into food. The Food and Drug Administration, which was created as part of the Food and Drug Act, they were the agency dictated with creating the list of things that are harmful that you shouldn't add. And in 1901, they decided that, you know what, maybe we should stop putting ant poison, borax, into our meats to use as a tenderizing agent. And most people agreed with that, so they stopped doing it. And since then, there's a long list of things that you're not allowed to put into foods, drinks, and medications that are known to be harmful. And the people who are in charge of deciding what is and isn't harmful is the Food and Drug Administration. They have the power to enforce. They are experts in their field. They're usually doctors who study these things. The overturning of Chevron now says that Congress is the one in charge of enforcing these things and making the rulings on them. So the Food and Drug Act just says harmful substance. Unless Congress goes back and revises that to start adding everything on the long list of known harmful substances and citizens and puts them into the Food and Drug Act, no one is required to not put certain harmful substances in foods.
Okay, so, using borax as a very, very specific idea, if anybody knows anything about Chinese cooking, to tenderize meat, you put it in a mix of water and baking soda. Yeah. So, I'm assuming that's how the borax worked, kind of, back in the day.
Yes, almost exactly.
Okay.
It just made it ultra tender.
Okay, so, by that very same logic, anything and everything that has any kind of effect that is good, technically, to the meat, has a good end effect, but might ultimately kill you. Doesn't matter what it is, will go back into food.
Potentially. But a good example is, like, right now I'm drinking a Monster. Most of these energy drinks, like Monsters and other caffeinated drinks, they are capped by the FDA at around 400 milligrams of caffeine per can, because that's the safe recommended dosage for the human heart through the course of one day. So 1 can a day, 400 milligrams of caffeine, you're good. But there are unregulated drinks currently on the market that you can buy that have 500, 600, 1,000 milligrams of caffeine in them. Those do not have an FDA patent. Those do not, they're not regulated, so they're not widely sold. Without the Chevron Act, those drinks can start flooding the market now, and no one can do anything about it. You drink that, your heart explodes, that's a you problem.
Okay, so with the potential for fallout, okay, there's already foods that we can't export because this is the American version. It doesn't fly here. Like certain cereals and shit. This could potentially make it so that, yeah, I wouldn't even feed that to my dog type shit.
Yeah. It also opens the things for the stuff we're not allowed to import because it's considered toxic or considered harmful because of the chemicals that are in it. We can start importing those now.
The fly cheese.
Yes.
Oh, God, no.
But another thing is, like, you mentioned the Second Amendment. The ATF is the group that decides what is and isn't a machine gun, what is and isn't an automatic weapon, what is and isn't a beneficial accessory for a firearm. Because the Second Amendment is very broad in its wording. The Constitution just says we have the right to bear arms that shall not be infringed. So, without the Chevron ruling, the ATF loses all of its power. So that becomes one of those, oh, that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because now we don't have this one agency willy-nilly changing its rulings like they did on things like arm braces, where when they first came out, they told the manufacturer very specifically, oh yeah, this is perfectly legal, you can sell them, it's a great thing, it's a device that helps disabled veterans and other disabled people be able to fire a handgun or rifle easier. Great, wonderful, great things. And then a few years later, oh no, those are illegal. Why are they illegal? Because we say so. So they don't have the power to do that anymore. But they also don't have the power to say something is legal either. So, hey, do you want to own a machine gun? Fucking go for it. Remember,
That's not how the NFA works. You know that.
The Firearms Act does not define a machine gun. The ATF defined a machine gun after the Firearms Act came out.
In the Firearms Act before 1986, if I remember correctly, anything that was a machine gun could be grandfathered in. Anything made after that,
Yeah, but the revised Firearms Act, the one that came out under Clinton,
oh,
like, because when the first one expired, they revised it, and then they've revised it again recently. The act itself does not define what is and isn't a machine gun. It just says you can't own a machine gun. What the fuck is a machine gun? That was just an alarm on my phone. I forgot
Okay,
I had it
fine.
set for a certain time.
you people couldn't see it. I was looking at him like, we silenced our phones.
I did silence
You
my phone.
jackass.
Hey, normally on a Thursday, it is 9:45 a.m. right now. This is when I wake up. So that was my "it's time to get off your ass" alarm.
Fine, go make me a sandwich.
No.
Okay, just all right. Fine, I'll take your word for it. As far as I know, the NFA said these specific guns before 1986. Sorry, 86.
I think they did, but since, let's say it does, I'm pretty sure. I think you're right. I think it does have very specific weapons on it. So then, any weapon that's not on that list doesn't count.
What the hell's the name of that gun with the V thing again? That was really fun to shoot.
Oh, the Chris Vector?
That's it, the Vector. I want an automatic one of those then.
Yeah, if the National Firearms Act does not specifically mention the Chris Vector as a prohibited weapon, the ATF can't tell you you can't have one.
Oh, speaking of, okay, everything we're doing here is not legal advice. It's literally just fun between dudes.
No, yeah, this is just us ranting about the hypotheticals that now exist in the world because of the overturning of certain very important cases that have come before the Supreme Court. I mean,
Okay.
we're giving extremes. These are potential outcomes because this is technically what could happen. We're not saying this is what will happen. We are not legal experts. We are two dudes with internet access looking at justia.com and looking at a list of Supreme Court rulings. And the ones we're talking about, these are just the rulings for the last 7 fucking days.
Yeah.
Like, in the last month, in the last 30 days, the Supreme Court has overturned more rulings than any other Supreme Court in history.
They go through these way too fucking quick.
Like, the total number of rulings that have been overturned in the history of the Supreme Court in the last 100 years is 100.
Wow, that's hilarious. Oh.
40 of those. 40 of those 100 rulings in the last century has happened with this current Supreme Court. Like, those not just in the last year, but this current court that we have now, the 9 justices who currently make up the Supreme Court now, have overturned more rulings than any other court.
Okay, before we start getting onto the, like, attacking the Supreme Court or talking about them specifically, let's go through the rulings, then afterwards we'll go there.
Okay. So, like, the first one, the most recent one, was July 1st, 2024, where Corner Post Inc. versus Board of Governors. That is a case out of North Dakota that got ramped all the way up to the Supreme Court because Congress put a limit on the amount that companies and banks are allowed to charge you for being able to use chip card readers for your credit cards and the swipe machines. It's the per swipe, per scan charge for using your credit card. And before that ruling, they were able to, the charges were all over the place. There was no set limit. There was no like a certain amount that they had to start at or go up to. So it fluctuated literally from business to business, city to city, state to state, kind of like how taxes happen. That was literally the tax on being able to use a credit card. And when they made a federal limit on how much you could, North Dakota told all the businesses in their state, you have 6 years. 6 years from the time this ruling has gone into effect. And within that 6 years, you are allowed to argue and appeal this decision. After 6 years, you do not have a right to argue this appeal, to argue this judgment or appeal this decision. You just have to accept it. Well, there is a bar/restaurant called the Corner Post that opened a few days after the 6-year statute of limitations ran out, and they were upset with the fact that they could no longer charge 30 cents per credit card swipe in their store, in their business, that they had to go down to, I think it was down to 14 cents in their state. Like, the cap is like 21 cents. But like North Dakota said they were going to drop it super low. They were doing like 14 cents. And this business wanted to do more per swipe. But they opened after the 6-year limit for appeals. So they argued for so long that it finally got kicked all the way up to the Supreme Court that no, the 6 years should not be from the time the judgment passed. The 6 years should be from the time a business opened. So since they opened after that 6 years, they should have 6 years from that day, from the day they opened, where they can appeal and argue it. And during the appellate process, they should be allowed to charge whatever they want. And the Supreme Court just said, yeah, that's fair. Now, again, this is broad strokes, general layman interpretation of very specific rules and legislation that I am no expert. Jorge is no expert. Again, we're just two dudes who know a bit about some shit.
Okay, just from an economic standpoint, if you set a price and it can go higher or lower because of the basics of, what do you call it, demand and what is that other force called? Something in demand?
Supply and demand.
That's it, supply and demand. Then you can argue for raising the price. But if it's literally a price that you just want to set yourself, like, let's say I was a bank and I was charging the person $5, and then the next bank over, because they live in they work in a higher income area, they start charging $20 for using their card. You know what I mean? It's like, that's bullshit.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And like, if we go with the slightly more technical wording of the ruling in Corner Post Inc. versus Board of Governors is an Administrative Procedure Act claim does not accrue for the purposes of the 6-year statute of limitations that applies to suits against the United States until the plaintiff is injured by final agency action. That's legalese for when the rules affect you, then you get to argue against it. So because this business opened after the statute of limitations does not apply to them, because according to the Supreme Court, the statute of limitations doesn't start when the ruling goes down. It starts when you are affected by the law. So since this business opened after the original statute of limitations, it started to counter over again specifically for them.
Yeah.
So going forward, every business, if there is a rule or law that exists that existed before you opened your business, but it would affect and pertain to you after you open your business, starting the day you open your business and are subject to these rules, is this when you can start arguing that these rules don't apply to you.
Now, does that mean that the 6 years that is quote unquote allowed now, specifically in this case of this specific law, is that for every single law? Is that for any statute of limitations? Is that because, like, statute of limitations on a bunch of shit, like what do you call it, 7 years for certain types of crime, if you can go 7 years without getting caught, then you can what do you call it?
They specifically reference the Administrative Procedure Act.
Oh, okay.
And I've not read the entire act. I'm just saying, like, for this specific case, was in the state they gave everyone statewide in North Dakota a 6-year window for, you can argue this. You've got 6 years. The ruling came down today. 6 years from today, in that gap, all of you can take your time, make a case, come up with it. You can argue it. You can try to appeal it. You can try to find some proof or reason why it shouldn't apply to you. But after 6 years, that's it. You're done. This rule applies. It applies to everyone. It applies to you too. And that 6-year window closed, and what the state was saying was, because that window now closed, all businesses that open after that 6 years don't get to argue that the rule doesn't apply to them. And what the Supreme Court says is, no. The 6 years starts when the business opens. Because once the rule starts to apply to them, they are legally allowed to argue against the rule.
Okay, I kind of see how it can be fair, but at the same time, it's
It's
too.
fair, but it's unfair because literally businesses can just open and close, so they have an infinite amount of time to argue against this ruling.
Yeah.
It's I'm going to throw a little shade at where I live at the moment. I'm not going to mention specifics, but in the 2.5 years that I have lived in the apartment complex I lived in, the company, the property management company who we pay our rent to, who does all of the work for us and all of that, has changed 6 times.
Jesus Christ.
They change every time the taxes are due. You know why?
Why?
Because if a business closes, they don't owe back taxes. And when a business opens, they get a grace period. So if they keep changing the name of the fucking LLC on the title, it's a new business. And that's a loophole here in the state of Illinois. And the Supreme Court basically just said, yeah, that loophole should apply to fucking everyone everywhere. If the rules are affecting you in a negative way, and you can't make as much money as possible, then you can legally argue against it. And if it's ruled against you, just close and change the name of the company, file it as a new LLC, and start over again.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's that. Again, this is broad stroke shit from not legal experts. This is just a dude who reads a lot of shit.
And the dude who's interpreting slowly. Very, very slowly. I need coffee. God damn.
So another big ruling from the same day, July 1st, is Trump versus United States. And that's the big one that's gotten a lot of news and all that. And that is that the Supreme Court has ruled that the president, former presidents, current presidents, future presidents, have absolute immunity from all criminal acts if it's proven in a lower court that the act was an official act of the presidency. It is not the Supreme Court's place to decide what is and isn't an official act of the presidency. It is not Congress's. It is the lower courts. So we have a bunch of people who are just regular judges who have to go through and look at everything the president does, and they get to decide, well, was that an official act of the presidency, or was that an unofficial act of the presidency? So technically, if, again, broad strokes here, if the sitting president wanted to say, hey, you know what, we're never having an election again, all he has to do is sign an executive order, and it's not illegal. If the president pulled a gun at a press conference and shot one of the reporters for asking him a question he didn't agree with, well, he was the president at the time, and that journalist was defaming him. So, in his power as president, he decided to remove a defamer from the population. And he could decree that it was self-preservation. He was defending himself.
Okay, that's a little open-ended, but hear me out. Okay, you're not wrong, but at the same time, it's like any official act. Okay, the president does not officially execute anyone, as far as we know. And again, this still has to be decided by lower courts and shit. But still, sorry. I'd be interested in seeing a argument between a couple of judges going through different actions that a judge has taken. Like, okay, Clinton receiving a blowjob from Monica Lewinsky, is that considered an official act?
No. Well, maybe. Because that is stress relief, is because he has a high-end, stressful job.
And so, it's from one of his White House staffers.
Yeah. So,
it could be a massage.
She was performing her duties as one of his secretaries. She was helping him perform his duties. That's what an assistant is meant to do.
Yeah. Now we're obviously coming at this from absurdity, but still, I mean, okay, hiring a porn star again for stress relief in this case with Trump,
Yeah.
but
That's like all those cases that Trump recently lost that resulted in his 34 felony convictions. They've now been kicked back to lower courts because they have to decide. Well, some of the things that he was convicted of happened after the election was concluded in 2016. So some of those were acts of a president.
and now were they official or not? Yeah.
Yeah. And all you need to have is a judge who thinks Trump is a living god amongst people, like, oh, so many fucking people do. And, oh, yeah, no, that was an official act of the presidency. He can commit all the fraud he wants.
I don't know if this is legal. This is just coming to mind, but you know how what was it? Somebody had a special prosecutor for who was a Republican who was looking into I want to say shit, that was a couple of years ago. Fuck it. Okay, look. My point is some kind of special team of judges who go through different acts that were recorded in history by different presidents in order to choose, okay, that's an official act. That's not an official act. That sort of thing.
Yeah. Like, put it this way. It raises an interesting question for what is and isn't an official act and whether or not the president is immune to crime. Nixon. He bugged his office. He recorded people without their knowing it. He sent spies into the Watergate Hotel to I honestly forget the details of Watergate. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, so long ago we weren't alive for it.
But basically, all of that was part of why Nixon got impeached and why he resigned his presidency. And then that was why Carter, after Nixon, when Carter became president, he issued a pardon for former President Nixon. If he's immune to crime, according to the Supreme Court, he's immune to crime. If he was immune for crime, why did he need to have a pardon?
Okay, you're right, but also, how would impeachment work now?
They would need absolute proof that the thing that he did was not an official act of the president and that it was actually a crime. It has to both be a crime by the how we judge all crime in the US, and it has to be an unofficial act of the presidency. Which, again, all we need is the president to have a fucking press conference either immediately before or after the act, and it becomes an official act.
Just, they've opened a can of so much bullshit that will have to be argued for years to come.
They could literally just write it down on the White House stationery. That's from the desk of the president. From the desk of the president. The purge begins today. Fucking that's law. And we can't hold the sitting president responsible for that. It's not a crime because it's an official act of presidency.
Okay.
One of the other ones we also have is Moody versus Net Choice. That's kind of a First Amendment thing, which the general ruling in that one is First Amendment offers protection when an entity engaging in expressive activity, including compiling and curating others' speech, is directed to accommodate messages it would prefer to exclude. Also, a state may not interfere with private actors' speech to advance its own vision of ideological balance. Basically, what that is you can't tell me I can't say something. Like, we get to the First Amendment, basically nobody says that. But essentially what this is it's an anti-censorship thing. So, say I was writing an op-ed for a newspaper. I know, there's just so few that exist anymore, but let's say I wrote one. And I had a whole paragraph in there where I just went off on this rant about absolutely nothing, total bullshit, but it's extremely offensive. Horrible language, all of that. So the newspaper cuts out that paragraph. No, you can't. That's your opinion that my opinion is offensive. You can't censor me.
Okay, but at the same time, in terms of editorial powers for a newspaper in this case, yes, they're rare now, but an editor is supposed to have absolute power to say, nope, can't put this in there, gotta get rid of this, rewrite this, it's bullshit. So does that mean a writer gets to literally write whatever the hell they want and they have to publish it?
Pretty much. Because, well, like, say I'm a member of a church and I'm writing for the church bulletin. So the church, obviously, in its little newsletter, its bulletin, is going to be pushing the ideological views of said church. That's basically what the newsletter does. It's everyone kind of talking and agreeing about this one thing.
Right.
And in my piece that I wrote for that bulletin, say it's a Christian bulletin, but I just go off on this rant praising Satanism. And you choose to not publish what I put in your bulletin. Say you're the head of the church. You're not allowed to do that. You cannot specifically censor my speech to further your ideological viewpoint. You have to allow what I say, regardless of what your ideology is.
Okay, let's go for the little different example, okay? Let's say I am the head of the church bulletin, okay? And then you were supposed to write a little, like, couple paragraphs about Jesus coming, what's it called? Jesus dying on the cross because it's near Lent type thing. Let's say that, okay?
Okay.
Then, instead, you gave me an 11-page paper, and I'm like, we're not made of money. We cannot literally write all this. It will be the smallest text even ever made.
Then that would be fine, because you're not censoring me because of my ideology.
So it's specifically only ideology.
It's only ideology. And if the speech is directed towards others. Like, you cannot accommodate yourself because you disagree with what I say. So, say we go to because we're here in Illinois, we're near Chicago. Let's say you and me go to the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
And we decide we're just going to hand out leaflets that are hyper pro-Republican. Like, literally, we have every white nationalist in the country, just their pictures on the front of it, just all the rhetoric, every lie ever told by any Republican politician forever. That's the only thing written on it. And it's supposed to say, you look at all the good things these people do. You can't stop me from handing those out. Just because my ideology is against yours, you can't say no.
Okay, specifically ideology. Okay. Still don't agree with it because hate speech. I mean, let's say there were white supremacists who were like, okay, tonight I might have to censor this, we'll see it. But okay, if they are white supremacists who literally write on Facebook or whatever, and they say, tonight we're going to Birmingham, Alabama, and we're going to burn churches all over, burn crosses all over the place, and firebomb churches or whatever. It's a credible threat, okay? So, in that case, what does that mean? I mean, they can't censor it in that case, okay? But at the same time, they know that this will happen. Does the police get involved? Does it, like...
No, because that goes to another ruling, which I forget the name of it, but it's also a ruling that's recently passed. You can make threats. It's one of those things like Trump's Project Heritage, the people behind Project 2025. Like, just last night, they were on the news, on TV. They held a televised press conference where they literally said, if Trump doesn't win the presidency, we're going to start killing people. Outward. Not those specific words, but it was not vaguely implied. It's, there will be blood. We will use weapons. We will cause harm.
Okay.
And that is not illegal. They are inciting violence with their words, and they are 100% protected.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of staying above the law and above board, we're going to look for a clip for this and probably put it in the comments or in the description. Just, yeah. Keep a lookout for that. Hold on a moment, please.
Sorry, I lost my place in my own notes here. Give me a second. Making noises, making noises.
Now I want bacon pancakes.
Bacon pancakes, bacon pancakes.
Like, okay, Adventure Time was a lot of things. It wasn't very entertaining to me, but like it had certain things that were awesome. Like Bebo.
Yeah. Okay, I found my place again.
Yeah.
It takes me a second sometimes.
Don't. No, that doesn't work here. Forget it. Continue.
So we're gonna jump to one that's not on my list, but that's just because of the weird way my list works. And we're gonna talk about the overturning of Chevron. What Chevron did was it's a ruling from I think it's the early or mid 1980s, but it's the one that basically gave the federal agencies the authority it has. So, like the authority that the National Labor Relations Board has to protect the rights of the employees, to make sure that you have a fair wage, you work a certain number of hours, you're not getting overworked, you're not getting underworked, all of that. They don't have any power to help enforce that anymore. Because of Chevron being overturned, there's the Food and Drug Administration, the people who are tasked with enforcing whether or not hazardous chemicals and hazardous materials go into the food and drinks and medications that we take.
I thought we just spoke about this one earlier.
No.
With the food. No? What was that one then? What's the difference?
Did I mention that one already?
At the beginning, we talked about borax and tenderizer and shit.
Oh, that was... I don't think I specifically mentioned what the overturning was.
Oh, sorry. Continue then. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's... yeah, that's the overturning of Chevron that lets people just put whatever they want into anything. So, like most people know that Coca-Cola had to stop putting cocaine in their drinks. Well, that's because of the Food and Drug Administration telling them that cocaine is bad for people and you can't add it as a stimulant in the drinks. Guess what? The FDA doesn't have the power to say that anymore.
What about Schedule 1, Schedule 2, and all that shit?
Food and Drug Administration rules that.
So then, technically, besides regular legal, pharmacist and shit stuff, you can't get access to that drug. But so weed is no longer a Schedule whatever the fuck drug.
Yeah. Because that's the ATF and the FDA. Like, unless there's a specific act of Congress that specifically says you were not allowed, like, it's a crime to have cocaine, it's a crime to have marijuana. The agencies who enforce that have no power to enforce that.
What about the Drug Enforcement Agency?
They have no power to enforce anything because they are a federal agency who interprets the rules of Congress to create the laws that they enforce.
Okay, so that means that...
Yeah, basically every government agency, every federal agency whose job it is to interpret the rules and then enforce them, like OSHA. Like OSHA is that they tell you what is and isn't safe on your job site. They have no power to do. They can't shut a place down for not giving me a safety harness because I was climbing on a roof. They don't have that power anymore.
So there are no blue collar job protections anymore.
There are no white collar job protections anymore. The whole, oh, you can't work 100 hours a week straight. Like, we have to give you some time off. No, that's part of the National Labor Relations Board. They have no power. Chevron is what gives those agencies the power. So, yeah, there's an act of Congress that says, oh, you must, like, employers must give people breaks and a fair wage. They've never said what the fuck a fair wage is. They've never said how long a break should be, or the gap between how many hours you should work before you get a break. That was the labor board that decided that.
Okay, there are also some state protections for that. Not a lot, I'll admit. But
federal rules override states.
Not always.
Always.
No. Because if that were true, I would only be making $7 and whatever the hell the minimum wage is federally.
The state is allowed to pay you whatever the state wants. They're only legally required to give you the federal minimum wage.
Pretty
And
sure that's not how that works.
that's how that works.
If that were
The
true,
federal minimum wage is the minimum amount that they are required to give you. They cannot give you less because that's the federal rule. The state the state can come up with its own rule that can pay you more, but they can't pay you less. It's kind of like the whole weed thing. Weed is a federal felony, but it's legal here in the state of Illinois.
okay, like I said, the state or the city can do whatever the hell they want in terms of the law unless they're sued for it. But what do you call it? The minimum is the federal, but the state can choose whatever the hell it wants.
Yes.
It's not about being allowed. It's about having the freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm just misinterpreting your words. Sorry.
It's basically, like, especially when it comes down to like the minimum wage thing. It is, again, like the bare minimum that they're allowed to give you is what the federal government says you have to get paid. Everybody who works a regular job, not a tip job, has to be paid $7.25 an hour. And people who work tip jobs are only legally required to get, I think, $3.15 an hour. And that's it. No state is legally required to give you more than that. Most states have chosen to give you more. And that is the privilege you have for living in that state. That's why everyone always says, well, if you don't like it here, move. Like, if I don't like the fact that the Illinois minimum wage is $15 an hour, then I should move to California where it's $20. That's my guarantee of I'll get paid more, is I have to leave where I'm at. Because there's no law requiring the state of Illinois to give me more money. There's no law requiring any employer within the state to give me more money. So the fact that the cost of living in this state requires you to earn $25 an hour for the bare minimum, because the bare minimum cost of living for a single person in the state of Illinois is $95,000 a year. That's to live comfortably. That's not bare minimums at the ass end of poverty, but you're still technically struggling by. That's, I have a home, my bills are paid, I have a car, and I don't have to make just hard choices between, am I eating today or am I going to have a lamp on?
Okay, God damn it, we're jumping all over the place. Okay.
Yeah, we are. But that's what we are. That's what we do.
Okay, I had a thought on the Project 2025 thing.
Go for it.
Okay, we literally know that the dude said that a revolution is happening and it will remain bloodless if the left allows it. So, that is an implied threat, which is now obviously protected because of the Supreme Court bullshit. So, in this example, I guess people saw the movie Civil War and were like, you know what, that looks fun.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. In school, as a kid, we learned about Civil War, we learned about, labor rights, learned about women's suffrage, learned about civil rights, learned about these, May Day. What was it called? The May Day rights?
The May Day Revolution, or the May Day riots?
And
the Putnam riots and that?
Yeah. So, people who literally gave their lives and suffered so that their future children could have a better life, okay? Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't these little political battles and other microcosms of, no, I didn't like Lincoln saying, no, I didn't release the slaves because I'm anti-slavery. I released them because otherwise the war would have kept going on or some shit. You know, like that little political microcosms of shit. At least they still did what was right, technically. Yeah. Okay? My point here is, why, in that same vein, would somebody not want their children to have a better life? Okay? This is completely going backwards. So instead of talking about things like we usually do, in terms of like left, right arguing, everybody is basically in their own echo chambers and getting hyped up to be these barbarians of war.
Because they're making America great again. And they have this weird idyllic sense that our country was at its best when we were at our most racist, when we were at our most divided. Like, everyone, like, these people want to go back to, like, post-war, when our economy was booming and our industry was thriving, because we had all these people coming back from the war. We had factory jobs going. We had cities expanding. We were one of the greatest nations, greatest economies, greatest powers in the world. Now, technically, we still are. But things have changed over time. They have changed for the better. The things that didn't change for the better was around 1981 till now. Things have gotten steadily worse. And the thing that started that was we used to have a 94% tax on the wealthy. That was the income tax on people who made like $160,000 a year, basically millionaires. 94% income tax. That went down to 30% under Reagan, because the prevailing thought there, which we know now looking back at history, that this was the stupidest fucking thing ever uttered by a human being. But in the moment, this is the post minor stock market drop from when the Nippon index crashed hard in 1980.
Yeah.
So in post that, and coming out of the oil crisis of the 70s, cut taxes on the ultra wealthy, cut taxes on businesses, with the thought of, if they don't have to give the government so much money, they can use that money to create more jobs and pay their workers a better wage. And technically it worked, because there were a handful of the ultra wealthy and there were a handful of corporations who were like, yeah, that makes sense. And they started profit sharing things, and they started hiring more people, and you had these big industrial, these corporate expansions throughout the 80s. You know, the heyday of the 80s, you know, the Wall Street days, when the stock market was trading at its highest, and, you know, big corporations were coming and going, and the factories were expanding, all of that. Basically, technically the second industrial revolution. But then the tax cuts kept coming. They kept lowering the taxes. And then those corporations and the ultra wealthy who run them, they're like, oh, wait, we have extra money. I don't need to hire more people. I could just pocket this money. I don't need to give them profit sharing. I can just pocket that money. I don't need to expand to other cities. I can just pocket that money. And they want to go back to that time, which we slowly am, where like the taxes are still going lower and lower and lower and lower. And it's something that comes up for the presidential debate that happened a couple days ago, which was a very important technical lie by Trump. It's that he gave the biggest tax cut in history. No one else cut taxes as much as he did. When you look at what the tax cut actually was for him, it was 0.06%. Reagan's tax cut was damn near 70%. Fucking Obama cut taxes more in 1 year than Trump did in 4. So that's just a lie, and it's bad math. Trump's tax cut was actually the lowest fucking tax cut in the history of taxes being cut. It was less than 1 fucking percent. I mean, yeah, when you look at the whole, when you look at like how much taxes he cut, it's billions and billions of dollars. But when you weigh that against the GDP, it's 0.06%. When you weigh the cuts that he imposed against the money that this country makes, especially the money that this country makes off of taxes, it's one of the lowest in history. It's nothing. It's a literal drop in the bucket. Or in his case, because it's so low, it's a fucking drop in the ocean. But they want to go back. They want to go back to we have the new Red Scare, where they keep talking about how horrible the communist China is and how they're taking over everything and they're in charge of stuff, and they were so strict with China under Trump. Yeah, well, how come when Trump had his meeting with Xi Jinping, his daughter simultaneously got something like 17 patents that same day issued and granted to her from the Chinese government for businesses? That's while she was working for the White House, which is against the emoluments clause of the Constitution. But hey, Constitution doesn't apply to Trump. Trump himself received over a dozen patents and trade agreements and stuff directly from the Chinese government during his time in office. But they're so strong against China, and China is the enemy, and the communist China is so bad, except for when they're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into Trump's bank account.
Okay, is it just me, or am I just naive that they're getting a lot bolder in terms of their... What's the word I'm looking for? I used to be eloquent, I really did. No, but they're getting a lot bolder in their bribes and their corruption and all that jazz.
Well, that's because of yet another ruling of the Supreme Court in the last week. Bribery is not a crime.
Okay, run that back.
It is 100% legal to bribe public officials.
Hold on, which one are we talking about now?
I forget which one it was. I know it has something to do with it's not illegal to do quid pro quo. You can give gifts, including money, to somebody because they just did something for you. I want to say it's a little farther down. Schneider versus United States. Or it's 18 USC 666. Does not make it a crime for state and local officials to accept gratuities that may be given as a token of appreciation after an official act. Meaning, if I, as a politician, vote against this bill that would hurt your business, so I vote against it so it doesn't pass, and then suddenly you give me a $2 million donation to my campaign, a very obvious fucking bribe. No, it wasn't. It's a gift. Or you bought me a house. Kind of like what happened with, I forgot his name now. Clarence Thomas. One of the justices of the Supreme Court, who has a rich white man buying him vacations and houses and cars and taking him out of state for all kinds of things, taking him out of the country with his family. Those aren't bribes. Those are just gifts amongst friends. So what if after every one of those trips, or immediately before every one of those trips, Justice Thomas has ruled against something that directly affected that politician, that man's interest? Not a bribe.
Okay, so by that definition, there is no such thing as a bribe.
Exactly. Oh, it says state and local official. You know who counts as a state official? Police officers. It's not a crime to bribe the police anymore. So when they get you on body camera, like, are you trying to bribe me? No. Why, yes, officer. Yes, I am. Cool. How much you got?
What do you mean, yes, I am? No. You say no.
It's not a crime. You say yes. They're like, no. I'm offering you a token of appreciation. Because it's not a bribe. It's a token of appreciation. And if I give you all the cash in my pocket to not give me this ticket, that's a gratuity.
Wait.
Big word for tips. I'm allowed to tip you.
Just a tip?
Just a tip.
No. Now, what about extortion in this case? Let's say, because, again, common practice in Mexico. So, you get stopped by the cop. They tell you, your rear light was out, right? Like, No, it isn't. Then, yeah, of course it is. See? I can write you a ticket for it right now. But, ticket's gonna be 200. How about you just pay it to me? Fuck.
Now, of course, I'm sure this ruling is meant to be only for politicians and judges and stuff like that, and it's not meant that it's legal to bribe the police or the FBI or the DEA or the ATF or any of those agencies. But technically, it doesn't say you can't either.
It says state and local, so that doesn't mean federal, though.
I mean, so a local official.
Yes, like the mayor, like the sheriff, okay? It doesn't say federal, so it can't be a bigger politician.
Well, that's state. The federal government is the state, and local is your state.
I'm pretty sure that's not how that works, but fine.
In most cases, that is how it works, especially since the ruling is Schneider versus United States. That makes state United States.
All right, now, before we were talking about how people can say things that might incite violence, there is no hate technically anymore. Again, this is just our opinions, people.
Yes.
Murthy, I'm gonna mispronounce
Murphy.
this.
It's pronounced similar to Murphy, but it's Murphy versus Missouri. Plaintiffs who argued that the federal government pressured social media platforms to censor their speech in violation of the First Amendment did not have a standing to seek an injunction.
Hold on. Okay, people say Hispanic names are weird.
Yep.
Murthy? Fuck y'all. No, continue.
So basically, that is when people have used the Supreme Court, or they've used Congress, or they've used presidential acts, or the FBI, or any of that, who have pressured, like, the FBI pressured Facebook to start removing posts from the KKK. And the KKK sued because of that. Technically, the KKK had no right to sue because the federal government is allowed to censor you on social media.
All right, so whatever you say is now allowed to be said. Whatever the fuck you want to say, literally said, verbally,
Well, basically,
audibly.
you can't sue for being censored on social media, and you can't tell me I can't say something any other time. That's what the two different rulings are.
That's why. So audibly say whatever the fuck you want. Posting it on Facebook or Twitter, whatever.
Yeah.
The social network formerly known as Twitter, whatever the fuck. Like, legitimately, all that jazz. Whatever is written online, no, it can be taken off whenever the fuck they want. Whatever you say is fine.
Yeah. And basically, this is one of those things that technically, at the moment, is working against this conservative government that's trying to gain power, the current Republican Party, because what it is they did it because they get tired of losing all their lawsuits for, well, you took down all my posts that were spouting nonsense and misinformation and rhetoric. That, like, no, I'm suing you for that. When they keep losing those suits. So now the Supreme Court said, fuck it, you can't sue, period. Because that is helping them against the Democrats, who are currently like, but no, Trump's a fucking liar. And then now every time one of the social medias takes those posts down, you can't sue them for saying, hey, wait, no. You can't censor me. Yeah, we can. We absolutely can.
It's getting... Okay, I keep harping on fair and balanced doctrine from back in the 80s, before Reagan. That's literally, like, taken down, and then people find a new way to post, taken down, and now the only places you can literally get part of the truth, because both sides lie, okay, is literally looking on each side of the what do you call it, each side of the aisle, and then trying to find the truth in between both, and then get the truth and understand.
Yeah.
You're going to drive yourself crazy.
Honestly, you have no idea how filthy I feel sometimes because of the fact that I do have to look on Truth Social so I can see the Republican rhetoric. Just so I can... This is the extremes that they're posting on their private social media network. versus what I can see on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram versus what I can read in the news. And I have to compile all of that shit to come up with these opinions that I have. And yes, I have strong opinions, but my strong opinions are rooted in as much information as I can gather. Sometimes it's wrong, but most of the time, I have to go off the information I have. If the information is wrong, my opinion is going to be wrong.
I understand, because I've had to do kind of the same thing, but mine is mostly YouTube, Kick, and what's the other one? Not TikTok, the other place.
Twitch, Instagram.
No, video-wise specifically, like TikTok, YouTube, and Kick, and there's like one more, but I forgot what it's called. Anyways, I mostly watch videos to get my news, and I know kind of how you feel, because sometimes I hear stuff and I'm like, okay, that seems interesting, and then I'm like, no, fuck no.
Yeah, and the thing is, you have to see both those viewpoints. If you're only getting your information from one side, then you don't have all the information. But sometimes when you have information from both sides, it's so vastly different. It's like there's a kernel of truth somewhere here on both sides, and it's trying to find it. And then you have the news media, which was supposed to be unbiased, but there was a ruling, I think this one was a couple years ago though, where no, they don't have to be anymore.
Since Reagan, they don't have to be. What are you talking? Oh no, right. That there was a lawsuit against Fox, right? That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah. Where Fox lost that lawsuit, but then afterwards they had the news doesn't have to be fair and balanced. We're totally allowed to put our own bias in things. We're just not allowed to give what is 100% false information. That's what Fox was doing. That's what the lawsuit against News Corp was, where they had to pay so much money. They were peddling 100% false information. There was no kernel of truth behind anything that they were saying.
Okay, you just gave me the worst idea. Like, okay, you call it parody news or whatever you want to call it. Like, you tell people it's fake, okay? But it's not. And what I mean by that is, you take real news stories, and we're not talking about The Onion here. I'm talking, you take the news stories like, let's say, the debate between President Trump and President Biden, okay? And you literally say, Trump was incredibly eloquent, as always, and Biden had a Rain Man moment. Or, like, something along those lines, calling him an idiot because he was retarded, but he was on a Ritalin drip. We'll say that. And then you say whatever the fuck you want about news, interpreting it every single which way you want, and you call it a drama. It's not even the news. And you say whatever the fuck you want. Like Fox did, but technically, by the definitions you just gave, it would be legal.
Yeah. Also, what you've just described is The Daily Show.
No.
Well, no. It's, you take a real news story and you say the opposite of what actually happened just to get people to pay attention to the news story.
No. You're misinterpreting me. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, okay, let's say the Great Wall of Drama fell, okay? Great Wall of Drama. God damn it. Fuck me.
Great Wall of China.
Great Wall of China fell, okay?
Yep.
Why did it fall? Okay? Technically, part of it was demolition in order to make room for building a separate section for, let's say, a history museum or some shit, okay?
Yep.
Now, we say, no, it was demolished because China wants an easier access to India. I don't know where the Great Wall is. I'm making this shit up. Okay? My point is, you take the story and then you go with it, but you don't call it news. You call it a soap opera or some shit, and then legally you're protected definition-wise to say whatever the fuck you want, like Fox was doing, only you do it now.
Yeah, again, that's technically what all of those satirical news shows do. Like,
I'm pressing
Last
pause.
Week Tonight.
Hold on. Okay, fine. Look, I'll put it this way. They're similar, but I'm talking about a show that is Alex Jones on steroids and not calling it the news.
I mean, yeah, that would protect you from being sued. The important thing, though, is you cannot peddle 100% false information, because that is also why Alex Jones got sued and removed from so many platforms.
But if it's not the news, who cares if it's 100% false? Let's call it a political drama.
It's depends. Like, if you're giving bad information that could hurt people, you could get sued if somebody actually gets hurt.
No, I can't. Speech is protected now. There's no such thing as hate speech.
Speech is protected. I mean, like, if you tell people that, hey, you know, when you get a really bad infection, if you pour bleach directly into that wound, it will cure it, because bleach kills the bacteria that causes infections.
Oh,
Don't do that, by the way. Please do not fucking do that. But if you say that and somebody does it, they can still sue you because you technically told people to do that. You have to put this is just my opinion. I'm not saying you should do this. I am not a medical expert. This is how I feel about the situation. You have to put in all those little special words that protect you.
but again,
Like, Tide Pods are delicious. No, they're not. Do not eat them. Do not eat them.
you will die. They will burn a hole in your throat and your intestines. Do not do it.
But they look like delicious jelly candies.
Do not do it. You will die. Legitimately.
We're using the special words that protect us after saying a statement that we know is partially true and patently false. Technical truth is they look delicious, like little jelly candies. The truth is they will harm you. Horribly, horribly harm you. So you should never ingest them.
Ingest means eat.
Yes.
Do not do it. Do not ingest. Do not eat. Do not inhale. Do not
ingest. Do not inhale. Do not masticate. That means do not eat.
Do not chew.
Sniff. Do not chew.
Do not in any way put them inside of your mouth, inside of your body, up your butthole. Nothing.
The only thing you can put up your butthole is 16 Zen pouches. It gives you power.
Again, do not do that.
That is a parody. That is a joke.
Jesus Christ. You had to go with the Zen pouch.
Hey, I sell them all day long at my store, okay? People come in like fucking raving maniacs looking for them.
Zen pouches. They give you potty power. I'm kidding. Anal amazingness. I'm kidding. Okay, moving on. Just fuck me.
Yes, last night I had a customer who literally here from Massachusetts. He flew in from fucking Massachusetts, from Boston, so that he could buy flavored fucking pouches. I mean, yeah, he was visiting his family too, but I was talking with him, but Massachusetts is one of the states where they're not allowed to sell flavored nicotine. So they can only get the unflavored ones, which are smooth and chill, and they can get the plain menthol one. Other than that, they can't get citrus, coffee, cinnamon, spearmint, peppermint. Yes, I'm listing all the flavors. Zen. By Zen.
Can we stop? Bruh.
This is not an advertisement, but by Zen.
Moving. Good. Okay.
We are not sponsored, but hey, people like them. I'll let you like what you like. Go for it.
Okay.
But, yeah, the dude literally just decided he was taking a weekend vacation to visit his family, mostly because he could buy flavored Zen pouches here.
Okay. You know what? Charleston Chew people. Just get that. Just fuck. Okay. Back to what the hell were we talking about again?
Back to reality. Oh, there goes Rabbit.
No. Oh God, no. No. Okay. Basically, my idea is you would be able to work the news or your version of the news, whatever it be, whether it be real, fake, parody, whatever the fuck, into a drama show and call it the news. But don't actually call it the news, because then you will be subject to actual definitions by the law and other bullshit.
Hello and welcome to ZeroPoint Energy.
Fuck you!
That's kind of the point of our podcast sometimes.
What? Explain? The fuck?
We talk about the news, but it's not the news, and it's our own opinions on the news, and most of the time it's probably fucking wrong.
Well,
But we also don't claim to be experts. We don't call it the news. We're just two guys talking. Which is what protects us from getting sued for giving false information. We're not saying we're an expert at anything. We often, very, very often, deny being knowledgeable about any of the fucking things we talk about.
we're two assholes who talk out our asses. Not literally.
Exactly. These are the opinions of us and us only. This is our as informed as possible opinions. But we're not scholars. We're not experts. We're not trusted people in a field. I am a fucking cashier. Jorge is a customer service rep.
Yeah.
We are just two blue-collar guys just bitching about the world.
Okay, back to the Supreme Court, because good lord.
The Supreme Court. Okay, back to our list of... Oh, we have Ohio versus the EPA, which, when the EPA offered no reasoned response to legitimate concerns posed during the comment period for a rule, this likely indicated that the EPA's final rule was not reasonably explained. Basically, if you cannot say exactly why the chemicals you're pumping into the air or are allowing to leach into groundwater are bad, you can't tell me to stop doing it. They don't need to dumb it down. They just need to eloquently explain their position. They can't just say, you can't pour chemicals into the groundwater. They have to say, why are those chemicals bad for the groundwater, with their explanation of you can't pour them into the groundwater. Like, if they would say, you cannot pour lead-filled chemicals into the groundwater because it will cause lead contamination in the water and people will die or get sick with lead poisoning, then that is an eloquent statement. That is a reasoned response. They can't just say, you can't do it. So, yeah, so that would be a reasoned response. There's an explanation as to why you can't do this thing. They can't, again, you just can't just broad stroke it. You can't do this. It's bad. Well, why is it bad?
Okay, I like the explanation idea. The problem is, it'll take so fucking long.
Exactly. And while they're waiting for those reasoned responses, they don't have to stop doing what they're doing.
Okay, in that same vein, then, again, I don't know how this works in terms of budgeting, but send everybody in the area a text message, which the government has the power to do. We've received God knows how many of them from Trump when he was in office.
Uh-huh.
So then send a text message, hello, concerned citizen of Oklahoma. This is going to go into effect. Please comment what you think about it. You have until, let's say, 2 weeks. Literally, you told everybody with a phone.
Well, no, see, it's not that they're not telling enough people or they're not explaining it to enough people. It's like when they just tell the state body, like when they had that train that derailed and they pumped all those chemicals into that river. The EPA told Ohio, you have to clean this up as fast as possible. It's bad for the water. Why?
What are the chemicals again?
I forget what those chemicals were.
Okay.
That was almost a year ago.
Fuck it. Let's do something simple. It's a specific type of mercuric salt. Okay?
Yeah.
Then tell them, okay, because the salts will leach into the water table and they're really hard to clean up. When you drink, you will lose IQ points. Literally.
That is a reasoned response.
Okay. Fine.
So as long as you give the reasoned response, then you can tell me no. You can't just say, no, you can't dump this out.
Okay, but what if the company plays dumb and says, okay, how?
Then you have to give them this is how you should clean it up. You can't just say, clean it up.
Okay, that costs too much money. They can literally just keep having the conversation over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's bullshit. All right, moving on.
We got the SEC versus Jorge. When the SEC seeks civil penalties against a defendant for securities fraud, the 7th Amendment entitles that defendant to a jury trial. It basically means that at the moment, the Securities Exchange Commission, people basically in charge of the stock exchange, they can say you were doing insider trading. And because of that, you earn so much money. We're not going to send you to prison. We're going to impose a fine because you were committing fraud. You can pay the fine, or you could go to jail. Those are your two choices. Well, with this ruling, it's, I demand to have a jury of my peers in front of me before I pay any penalty or go to jail. And they have to do it. You can't just say you owe us money or you're committing fraud, stop it. Like, nope, I need a jury to tell me it. You need to get 12 fucking people to sit in a box and they have to tell me I did wrong.
Okay. A lot of the banking stuff involving stocks and shit is basically self-governed. Is the SEC an actual government agency, or they're self-governed like the rest of it?
They are an actual government agency, but they're not the federal government. It's kind of like the DEA and the FDA and all that. They are a government agency, but they are not the government.
Will you shut up?
He's always making noises like that.
He's growling at nothing.
Yeah, Holly probably made some kind of noise in the bedroom, and he hears it, but I don't.
Fine. Like, I'm saying just because if they're a private entity, or if they're self-governing like the couple of the other things, the SEC, the FCA, I want to say.
The SEC is an actual. I want to say they are a private entity, but they're the ones taxed with it. Like, you'd have to look up what the SEC is.
Okay, look, my point is, if they're technically a private entity who is given the power to govern Securities and Exchange, then it doesn't make sense that they would have to be a part of a jury trial. They have to pay the fine. That's the way the system is set up. Now they're imposing the government system onto a private system, assuming that I'm interpreting that right. Again, I don't know the shit.
Yeah.
I just know some shit. If that's right, then this seems like not exactly overreach, but definitely trying to muddle the waters. You know what I mean? Between private and federal.
Yeah. So the SEC is the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. It's an independent agency of the United States federal government created in the aftermath of the Wall Street crash of 1929. The primary purpose of the SEC is to enforce the law against market manipulation. So basically, Congress makes a rule that says this thing affects the stock market, and it's a broad, overreaching rule. Like, you can't insider trade. Well, what the fuck is insider trading? The SEC created the definition of what that is. The SEC created the penalties for what those are. So it's like, when you do, if you are found committing fraud and you owe this much money, or you serve this much jail time. It's that. Like, they're the government agency that created those rulings. They interpreted the broad stroke act of Congress to make actual rules and laws, and they're the ones who enforce it.
Okay, then
but
wouldn't
now they're required to let you have a jury trial because the 7th Amendment allows you to have. It gives you the right to jury trial if you're accused of crime. Fraud is a crime. Fraud is a jailable offense.
But is it different than the ATF and where they interpret the law and then apply it, or no?
Well, yeah, the SEC interprets laws and applies it too.
Then technically, wouldn't their power also be?
Their power was also taken away because of Chevron.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Okay,
yeah.
This is one of those, like, this ruling came out before the Chevron overturning.
Chevron, that's it,
Yeah.
right? All right. Did we do this one?
Which one?
From enforcing insubordination law. Right.
Moyle versus United States. This one is technically a good one, but it's also a short-term one at the moment. And it is, the Supreme Court left in place a preliminary injunction barring the state of Idaho from enforcing its abortion law when hospitals perform abortions that are necessary to prevent serious harm to a woman's health. But basically, Idaho has a law that says abortions are illegal no matter what. It doesn't matter if the mother of the child is dying, anything. You cannot abort the baby. What the Supreme Court did, which is this is one of the good ones they did, was like, yeah, no. If the mother is at extreme risk of death, you can save the mother's life. You can abort the child. You can abort the fetus to save the mother.
Question.
Yes.
It occurred to me just because ideas. You remember how you said reservations are their own sovereign nations?
Yes, technically.
Technically. Okay. So, if Planned Parenthood somehow got permission and made Planned Parenthood centers or abortion centers on res land, besides the political woke aspect of like, why are you trying to get rid of Native American lives, quote unquote? Okay. Besides that backlash, would that technically be legal in a state where abortions are completely outlawed?
That then becomes part of, does the Bureau of Indian Affairs allow the states to have jurisdiction? And the Bureau of Indian Affairs is the sub-department of the
Interior.
Department of the Interior, because Native American lives are still registered as animals, not humans, which is why the Interior Department, the people in charge of wildlife, are in charge of them instead of the Department of Human Services.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's legal to abort a litter of kittens, so I'm sure they'd have no care for, you're aborting Indians? Fuck it, we didn't want them anyways. We're still upset that you made us get rid of the boarding schools, because they are.
I meant more along the lines of like, okay, tourist abortion type thing, or whatever they're calling it now.
I'm not sure, because again, like, yes, technically most reservations are like sovereign territory of that tribe, but if it's a federally enforceable crime, things where you could get the FBI involved, then usually the BIA allows it to happen.
All right. I don't really have much to say about this. I was just thinking, but yeah.
Yeah. Harrington versus Purdue Pharma. The bankruptcy code does not authorize the release and injunction that, as part of a plan of reorganization under Chapter 11, effectively seeks to discharge claims against a non-debtor without the consent of affected claimants.
Now this one, go ahead.
Basically what this one does is, if you owe someone money or they owe you money, neither party is allowed to declare bankruptcy to get out of that debt, which is good and bad. It means that the big companies can't just claim bankruptcy all of a sudden and not pay you money they owed you because of a claim. But it also means if you are going against a big company and you have no money, you've spent all your money fighting this court case, and then you lose and you owe them money, you can't claim bankruptcy yourself, and now you don't owe them money. You still owe them that money.
Now, specifically, it looks like only under Chapter 11. There are other types of bankruptcy.
Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So there are other forms of bankruptcy that you can file for, and those forms would still, like, if those forms allow for a debtor to not have to pay a claim, then they would not have to claim a claim. But if you're filing Chapter 11, which is the most common form of bankruptcy, then you would still technically owe the money. So there's no more just filing bankruptcy and, oh, I'll take that hit for 7 years to my credit, but then everything will be A-okay. Nope, you still owe that money. And then we have Fisher versus United States, which is to prove a violation of 18 U.S.C. 1512. The government must establish that the defendant impaired the availability or integrity for use in an official proceeding of records, documents, objects, or other things used in the proceeding or attempted to do so. So basically that is, the government has to prove that you are destroying or hiding evidence in a case.
Which sounds good, but at the same time, it makes it harder to prove, because it's like, we know these documents existed. How? They were mentioned here. Okay. Where are the documents? They were lost 5 years ago. Okay, so it wasn't on purpose. So they're good.
Yeah. It basically it puts the burden of proof on the government for all things,
Again,
which technically it is, but it always has been. Like the burden of proof is always on the prosecution.
yes, but at the same time, it's like
This is the thing that 100% means yes, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. If a state's attorney working for the government is trying to say, hey, in this case of, let's say, election tampering, you have proof that ballots were tampered with, then you hid that. They have to prove that you hid it. They can't just say, yeah, but they hid these ballots. They hid this proof that the ballots were tampered with. Well, where's that proof? Well, they destroyed it. Do you have a video of them destroying it? Do you have a recording? Did somebody record them saying, hey, I'm shredding page 10 of 20? Where's the proof that he impaired your case by hiding or destroying evidence?
okay. Tell me if this is a stupid idea. Shut the fuck up. Remember when we were talking about NFTs and blockchain and shit? How there's always a ledger?
Yep.
Okay. So, if you could prove chain of custody and proof of any kind of document with an official with kind of an quote unquote official NFT,
Yep.
would that be enough proof, assuming this was ever made into some kind of secure standard, to say, we're missing this document? They have the NFT to prove it. And again, not as some kind of stock or speculative investment. It's specifically to show this existed, or minted to show that this did exist.
Yeah. Like that would work.
You know, a couple of years ago, this is a tangent, I don't care, but there was speculation that the internet would be so prevalent in our lives that every single bill, $1, $100, whatever the hell, would have its own website to make it harder to prove that something is counterfeit or is not. You know, that counterfeit bills would be impossible to make anymore. But similar idea, you know, you don't make a bunch of websites for bills. You would make an NFT.
Yeah, that actually goes back to the first people to come up with the idea of a digital currency, basically what is Bitcoin and NFTs and all that. It actually was the federal government.
Damn.
And then people realized, well, that'd be fucking stupid.
Well, yeah.
And then Bitcoin became a thing and everybody bought it.
Did you hear it crashed a couple of days ago?
Everything crashes.
I mean,
the price will go back up eventually. It always does.
Yeah, it didn't crash hard, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like in the last 5 years it has fluctuated so fucking hard.
Yeah.
If we go through like the history of Bitcoin, which is what, 20 years now, give or take.
About, yeah, I want to say.
Like some of the fluctuations are massive. Like I remember when Bitcoin started, and it was literally a 1-to-1 ratio, and then within a year it was 1,000-to-1. Then for a couple weeks it was 1,000,000-to-1. Then it was 1,000 to 0.5.
Now it's like 40,000 to 1.
Yeah. It's crazy how hard it fluctuates sometimes. And that's the thing. It's 40,000 to 1 after a semi-major crash. Like, that's what it fell down to. It was in the hundreds of thousands to 1. Like, it's insane. So Bitcoin is currently, as of July 4th, 2024, 4:30 p.m. UTC, $57,914.71 to 1. And yeah, what is that the history of Bitcoin trading, or is that just in the last 24 hours?
That's the last 24 hours. How the... Okay,
in the last 24 hours, Bitcoin has gone from $80,000 per Bitcoin. It fell down to 20,000 and is now back up to 50. In fact, the cost has just changed in real time while we're looking at it. And it's changed again. It went from 50,751 to 7,760. to 7,754. It's now 57,747. It is changing in real time as we're watching it, because we've currently pulled it up on our laptop.
Okay, so it's not at 40,000 again. Now it's at 50.
The 57,728.
It was literally 777
There we go.
a
It's
couple
now
months
to
ago.
730. Yeah, it's fluctuating in real time as we're watching it. It is changing every couple of seconds in leaps and bounds of a few hundred to tens. That's how volatile that market is.
Ugh.
Again, just when you had the chart up for the last 24 hours, it fell $20,000 in a 1 hour point, and it's almost back up to that point already.
Okay, to be fair, it was 2 hours, but yes.
Still. It's almost back to where it was at its highest 24 hours ago.
Not quite.
About halfway there. Because, what, didn't they say it
Okay, fine,
started at like
halfway.
88,000?
All right, fine. You're right. Halfway.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that one. And then there's the city of Grants Pass versus Johnson. What that is a Supreme Court ruling where it is jailable by is punishable by jail time if you sleep outside because you are unhomed or homeless. It is a jailable offense to be homeless and sleep outdoors in the United States now, because why we say we're like some of these cases, they seem like they pertain to one thing, but it sets precedent, and once you have a precedent set, you could use that precedent in other rulings. So because they set precedent in the city of Grants Pass versus Johnson, which is the enforcement of generally applicable laws regulating camping on public property does not constitute cruel and unusual punishment prohibited by the Eighth Amendment. Meaning it's not excessive to put you in prison because you were sleeping outside. And because that is now a precedent, other states, other cities, other municipalities can rule that, oh, so we can just throw people in jail for being homeless. And that is the important thing that makes these rulings so scary. These are not just simple rulings. These are not rulings on a single case. These are rulings in the highest court in our country that are setting precedent for the lower courts to rule off of. Because when the Supreme Court says it, technically it's the final say. Which means everybody below the Supreme Court, when they look up to, well, what would the Supreme Court do in this case? Well, the Supreme Court said we're going to put people in jail for it.
So basically, according to them, the rules on the books say if you have no home, you have to go to jail because it's illegal.
Yeah.
And it's not considered cruel and unusual, which apparently cruel and unusual has no meaning anymore, at least according to me. And what?
I don't know, I just want to make noise.
Oh, I thought you were saying something. Just cruel and unusual has no meaning, and you'll have to legislate to try to make it mean something again, or legislate to be nicer to those who are homeless by saying there are, let's say, I have no idea what the hell other solution there is for this, because there is basically no solution that has worked in the last, I want to say, 30 years.
Yeah. Basically, all this ruling is going to do is it is going to heavily contribute to the overcrowding of prisons. And here's a downside to the overcrowding of prisons is this 100% plays into another form of corporate greed, because so many states have privatized their prisons. There are for-profit prisons which are incentivized to have as many people incarcerated as possible because they get subsidies because of it. They get paid. These prisons don't have wardens, they have CEOs. So let's start throwing all the homeless people in jail. Well, here's another $1,000 because some of these jails are getting paid $1,000 a head for every person they have incarcerated.
The free market is not the answer to every single fucking thing.
Exactly. Privatization is horrible. This is like, especially jails and that. That is 100% something that should be public. That is something that should be run by the government. That should not be run by private entities. That should not be taken into the private sector. That is public sector stuff.
You can't privatize punishment. You can't privatize the value of a human life and the value of how much they need to consume, how much they need to suffer, how much they need to actually do anything. I mean, private prisons are basically hell, and that, not that regular prison isn't hell, but
they have no incentive to rehabilitate people or to ever release them.
Not just that, they have no incentive to treat them like humans. Like,
Exactly.
let's say they give them 500 calories a day just to save money on food.
Yeah, they give them calorie loaf, which is a thing, and they don't care about the mental health of being confined to solitary or and not getting like yard time and stuff like that. So they will lock people in solitary confinement, or just keep them away from general population, as they would call it, and let these people rot and go insane, and they don't care
It's literally
because they're making money off of it.
what I need to do. Take care of this prisoner, punish him. Okay. Is there any limits to what I can or cannot do for them? You must provide food, water, and a place to stay. And everything else goes. Yes. Perfect.
Yeah, that's it. The bare minimums. There's no incentive. There's no to create a rehabilitation program. There's no incentive to try to let them earn a way to reduce sentence. There's no incentive to include a library so they can study. No incentive to give them further education. Like, you and me grew up with watching movies and stuff where guys would go to the prison library and literally become lawyers from reading law books so they could try their own appeals.
Right?
That can't happen in a for-profit prison. They don't have libraries.
If there are two institutions that should not be private, they should be hospitals and prisons.
And those are the two that are privatizing the fastest.
Fuck.
Because if you can't make money off of human suffering, what can you make money off of?
Happiness. What?
America.
No, happiness, okay? It is literally documented. Okay? If you're a good businessman, if you have good manners, if you treat people with respect, okay? For the most part, they will treat you the same, and both of you can make money.
Yeah, that's almost like my favorite billionaire, Warren Buffett, the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. He treats his employees with respect. He pays them fair wages. He makes sure that their corporate taxes are paid in full. He does not try to circumvent paying taxes. He curtails excess expenses. He encourages people to take public transit. He gives out scholarships to his employees' kids. He gives out scholarships to various schools, like the schools in his home state, schools in various areas where Berkshire Hathaway has a big presence, because he knows if he treats them with respect, he pays them decently, and he makes them feel like they're important, they will do better. They will earn more money for themselves, which will in turn earn him more money, which he can spend for more programs like that, because Warren Buffett is also one of the reason he's my favorite billionaire. He 100% understands he can't take it with him when he dies, so he's trying to spend all of his money. But the problem is he's a very frugal person who lives on essentially the bare minimums. Like, he treats himself well. He lives in a decent house, but he bought that house outright, so he doesn't have a mortgage to pay on it. He just has to pay the property taxes. The people he has working for him, they have their own houses that he bought for them. So he spends his money but he also makes a shit ton of money every year.
All right, we're almost done.
Almost. Let's see what I saw. Oh, Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimundo. Courts must exercise their independent judgment in deciding whether an agency has acted within its statutory authority. Courts may not defer to an agency interpretation of the law simply because a statute is ambiguous. That, if I remember this one correctly, this is an ATF ruling. This was, I want to say, a person who went to jail because he bought a pistol brace when the ATF said it was legal, and then they changed the rule all of a sudden, and he became a felon overnight. Or maybe it's a little different. Oh, this one is different. Okay. So, oh, this is the overruling of Chevron doctrine.
This is?
Yeah, the Supreme Court, however, overruled the Chevron doctrine, holding that it was inconsistent with the Administrative Procedure Act. The APA requires courts to exercise their independent judgment in deciding whether an agency has acted within its statutory authority. Courts may not defer to an agency's interpretation of the law simply because the statute is ambiguous. The court vacated the judgments of the lower courts and remanded the cases for further proceedings consistent with the opinion. The court emphasized that while courts may seek guidance from the interpretations of those responsible for implementing particular statutes, they must not defer to these interpretations. Instead, they must independently interpret the statute and ensure that the agency has acted within its statutory authority. That is the overturning of the Chevron doctrine. That is, a federal agency interprets the law, and usually the state lawmakers, the local lawmakers, all of that, they're like, well, they said this is what that law means. Because the act of Congress that made that law is vague and ambiguous, and it's a big, broad stroke judgment. No one has to listen to that anymore. If it's not in that broad stroke statement, they're not required to ask for further interpretation from the experts in the agencies that actually make those rulings.
Okay. If I'm interpreting this right, technically, they did a good thing. Technically. The only reason why I say that is because they're saying that the Administrative Procedure Act supersedes the Chevron Doctrine, and the Chevron Doctrine was the bad interpretation. Technically, if it clears it up, it's good. Technically. Now, the problem is that... Since it was supposed to already be on the books that they have to determine if if an agency acted within its statutory authority, then that means every single action an agency takes has to be deliberated and given an opinion on by case law, which is a bureaucratic clusterfuck.
Yeah. So now, like I said, now judges no longer have to, so again, we'll keep using the ATF thing because it's the simplest thing. So when the ATF makes those rulings of what is and isn't a machine gun, what is and isn't an SBR, what is and isn't any other weapon, when they make those rulings, they're the ones who interpret it. And lawmakers usually take those interpretations and go, well, the ATF said, therefore it's illegal. So when the ATF said, you can't have a binary trigger because it essentially makes your gun a machine gun. Or you can't have a bump stock because it technically makes your gun a machine gun. Then lawmakers were like, well, the ATF said it was illegal, so it must be illegal, so you can't have this. Now, the individual judge can literally go, well, the ATF said it, but fuck what those guys said. I say it's not illegal.
Yeah. So if you have the money, every single decision that any agency made against you, you can try to overturn.
Yeah. And if you gotta go find those friendly judges who agree with your stance and try to make sure that your case gets tried before them. It's kind of like why so many, I forget what specific case ruling it is, but there's a reason why so many of a certain type of case are always filed in Oklahoma or Nebraska or Texas, because their laws are the most lenient for those type of cases. So like you just go to where the law works best for you and file your case there.
This is going to take years to fix.
This is going to take decades to fix.
Decades.
Because some of these rulings are overturning stuff from the 70s. Chevron came into power in the 80s. The absolute immunity thing was in the 70s. Again, it was because of Nixon. And they ruled that the president is not above the law back then. And the Supreme Court just said, yeah, fuck what those guys said. Forgetting that 2 of the current sitting justices were on that case. Which they changed their opinion, by the way, because they received gratuities. Thank you, Clarence Thomas.
God damn it. Okay. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You know what? Term limits for the Supreme Court, too. It has to be. Fuck.
No, Supreme Court needs to be elected. No more appointing, because you appoint these people, so then you have someone like Trump who has appointed 3. He appointed 3 Supreme Court justices in his time.
Weren't 2 of them supposed to be during Obama, too? No, 1.
Yeah, one was supposed to be during Obama. And, what was his name? The guy who looked like a fucking turtle. Mitch McConnell.
Oh my god.
He does. He looks like a fucking turtle.
Yeah. Oy.
He was the one who argued, no, we're right at the end of a term. You have to wait until after the election so that the next president can pick.
Which was bullshit.
So the justice that was supposed to be picked under Obama was forcibly deferred until after the election so that Trump could pick it. And that's how we got Kavanaugh. Who, by the way, Kavanaugh, during his little case thing that they do to see if they should determine if they're a good candidate to be on the Supreme Court, when they have to testify before Congress and all that.
Right.
He specifically said, no one is above the law. The president is not immune to crime. Every person in the United States, every citizen is equal in the eyes of the law. All laws apply to everybody. And then he overturned his own fucking rules.
When Trump was getting out of office, it seemed like, okay, these justices at the very least seem like they're fair. They interpret the law properly. Now they're getting more bold. They're being dumbasses. They want to just get away with whatever the fuck they want. The Administrative Procedure
They want their
Act.
oligarchy.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to Trump and his Supreme Court. They're going to rule the land. That's how it's going to become. We're going to have a king, and we're going to have his council, and it's only going to be them. And that's why a big part of Project 2025 is also that the president should be allowed to fire any federal employee, regardless of appointment, regardless of election, no matter what. They can fire any federal employee and replace them specifically with people who share the ideology of the president. Meaning, Trump will be able to take all the justices on the Supreme Court off who are against him and appoint other ones who are for what he wants. Any senator who dissents against him, no longer a senator. Anyone who dissents against the president, who shares a different ideology, who works for government, the president wants the power under Project 2025 to fire them and appoint people who are basically yes men, who do exactly what he says.
You remember V for Vendetta?
Yep.
It's going to come down to that, isn't it?
Absolutely. Which, by the way, our election this year will be on November 5th.
You're kidding.
Nope, 2024. election is on is Tuesday, November 5th. Okay, that is the first Tuesday in November. Remember, the 5th of November.
Okay, it's times like this that the world scares me, and I completely and utterly believe things like divine comedy, because there is no other fucking way I can explain the darkness that comes to mind.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Just, okay, remember the 5th of November. I mentioned V for Vendetta, just fuck. It comes together way too easily.
Yep.
Fuck.
I mean, you could look it up to make sure I'm right. I'm 95% sure I'm right on that, but just look up when the November 2024 election will be. Or just the date of the November election. When is election day?
You're right.
November 5th? Yeah.
Truth is stranger than fiction. Jesus Christ.
Oh, Jesus can't save you now. Unless you're in Oklahoma where they have to teach the Bible in all public schools.
Okay.
No, that's just a thing. There's no more separation of church and state. Even
Okay.
though the First Amendment specifically says that the government shall not create a preference for any one government religion, except when it comes to Christianity, then fuck it.
Okay, wait. Oklahoma. You said Oklahoma, right?
Oklahoma, their governor just passed the thing that starting with this new school year, the Bible must be taught in all public schools.
I thought it was that they have to have the 10 Commandments, not
That's
that
the state of Louisiana.
That's Louisiana. Okie dokie.
The 10 Commandments must be posted in every classroom, in every school, at every grade level, from kindergarten all the way through college.
Okay. So, my interpretation of that is kind of fun. Hear me out. So, you're supposed to teach the Bible. Okay. So, are we talking historically? Are we talking about Catholically? Are we talking Methodistically? Are we talking Presbyterianally? Like, which version will be chosen? And then, will that have to be done through legislative law or case law? Imagine every single church starts suing the government and says, you said they have to teach the Bible. Which version? Because, like, the Catholic Bible has, I want to say, like 9 more books than the Protestant Bible.
Which one is the most right-wing Christian nationalist? Because that's the one that they want.
I have no doubt that that's the one that they want. But at the same time, if they're going to play with fire, then you have to give it to them.
Oh, well, also, like I said, you have that state ruling that they have to teach the Bible. But we do have a federal ruling that the Supreme Court has ruled on multiple times about the whole, you cannot give preference to any one religion. So therefore, since Oklahoma has required that the Bible must be taught in school, that means you must teach in public school the Christian Bible, the Catholic Bible, the Torah, the
Brit Hadashah.
the Talashah, the Sanskrit. What's the Sanskrit Bible?
I forgot. There's got a lot of books.
Yeah, but you got that one, the Satanist Bible, the fucking the pamphlet of all the rules of Scientology. Like, you can't teach just one. According to the First Amendment, you must teach them all, or you teach none. So we're going to need another Supreme Court ruling to say, is there actually a separation between church and state? Can the state dictate what religion you get taught? And again, since it's public school, that means state entities. That means the state is funding it because the state education board is giving it. But that's another thing. If Trump becomes president and Project 2025 happens, they are eliminating the entire Board of Education. No, the Department of Education, which means the government agency that gives federal funding to schools.
I've noticed that when it comes to any kind of issue, usually the right wing, and I don't mean necessarily Republicans, but the right wing are a lot more angry and a lot more assertive in terms of actions that they take. And they've only been getting bolder. But at the same time, it seems like the left has been getting more apathetic and at the same time more disenfranchised with both Democratic lawmakers as well as not wanting to do anything. And I don't necessarily mean just protests. I mean like protests they want to do, but they don't really want to do the legwork when it comes to legislation.
Well, they do, but every time they try to do anything, they get shut down.
Yes, they get shut down by right-wing lawmakers. The problem is, right-wing lawmakers literally always play hardball, but the left always seems, again, I don't know for sure, because that was when I watched mainstream media.
Well, that's because...
Hold on. Let me finish my thought. The mainstream media always paints the right as these bullies, and the left as these weak, come on, guys, let's do this.
Well, that's because the left, at some point, started not being the left. They're more centrist, or slightly left centrist. Whereas the right has become further and further and further right. So they've literally been dragging both parties further to the right.
Okay. I like classical republicanism. And I don't mean Republican like hate the gays. I mean classical Republican as in small government, legislate laws, free commerce. That stuff makes sense.
And that's what these people are trying to say that they're doing. They're trying to say that they are still the party of small government. They're still the party of law and order and family values.
That's a lie.
Well, let's see. Which party has the most politicians in it who have been convicted or caught cheating on their wives? Republican Party. Which party has the most convicted felons running for office? The Republican Party. Which party is advocating for small government while giving the government absolute power? The Republican Party. The conservative small government party is trying to say that the government should dictate all things in life. The anti-communist party is the most communist thing outside of fucking China on this planet.
I'm not going to comment on China. I'm sure they're wonderful. I'm kidding. No. What I want to say is that...
I mean, I can interrupt you and give another example of... Here's something that the president can technically do under... now that the president is immune from all crime. And it is something that Trump said while he was the president. Which is another something he said shortly after his meeting with Xi Jinping. Like... Oh, President Ping made himself president for life. That sounds like a good idea. Maybe I should do that. No. But maybe. No. But maybe. Guess what? If he becomes president, he will now be allowed to do that. All he has to do is, from the desk of the president, I am your God King forever.
At that point, he's going to be freaking...
We're going to start having to refer to him the way they refer to the Kim family as Supreme Leader.
Yeah, no.
The exalted one.
You like 40K? Because that's how you get 40K.
I mean, we have the Christian nationalist, the Imperial man. Lindsey Graham at the head.
Didn't he die?
Nope, Lindsey Graham's still alive.
I swear I thought he was dead.
No, but Lindsey Graham is one of those who, before Trump came to office, was like, he's the devil. He's so evil. We could never have a man like him. And then he got a massive donation from the Republican Party. Trump should be president forever. He's my best friend. I love everything he's ever said.
There was another one. Something Grover?
Yeah, I forget that one. But yeah, him too. Like every fucking public speech he could make was so anti-Trump. And then all of a sudden his church got this massive donation from a mystery donor. And, oh yeah, no, we're best friends. I have him at my house every Sunday for dinner. He's the most Christian man I've ever met. It's not creepy at all that he said multiple times that he wanted to fuck his own daughter when she was a preteen. Yeah, the guy that the Republicans want to have president, when his daughter was 11 years old, he was on national TV Saying, if she wasn't my daughter, the things I'd do to her. Oh, I know something else that got overturned.
What?
You know how if you come to this country illegally, or even if you come to this country legally, and you marry a citizen, you automatically get your green card?
Right.
Nope. So, hey, President Trump, you know your wife Melania, she got her green card because she married your creepy ass. Since you can't get a green card for marrying people, and you want to try to revoke all the green cards that happened because of that, does that apply to Melania as well?
Look,
The stunned silence.
basically, what I'm getting at is this country is very rapidly becoming something it was never meant to be. It was never meant to be a dictatorship, an oligarchy, or the plaything of one man who has so little character, empathy, or any kind of reasoning towards having common sense. And if this nation falls, it will take many, many, many good things the world has, and I mean the world, with it. Right now, we're not even the world police as much as we used to be, because we're trying to save money. Because we're going down a path where the American dollar will be worthless, and right now American citizenship will be worthless. Right now it feels like there's no way to win, because our current president seems about as capable as Reagan was in his last years. And people loved Reagan. Apparently they hate Biden.
Yeah, they loved Reagan because Reagan, he had that force of personality, which it's one of those things that you don't want to make the comparison to, but you have to. And I've made this a comparison in the past for other presidents too. But there have been 3 presidents in my lifetime who've had this force of personality: Reagan, Obama, and Trump. They have the same force of personality that Hitler had. It's the ability to say fucking anything and people rally behind them. They could say absolute nonsense. Yeah, that's my president, let's do it. They could outright lie to you. Well, the president said it, so it must be true. They could tell you the truth, and it can be the most horrible thing ever. Like, well, that's sad, but the president said it, so we must back it. The thing is, when Obama did it, that was kind of when I was very first starting getting into politics. That was, because he was president from 2008 until 2016.
Yeah.
So I was a teenager when he was in office. No, I was just entering my 20s, because I was born in 85. So 2008, yeah, I was 19.
2012.
20, yeah, I was 20. I was 20 when he took office. So I was just getting into politics. I just started voting. And honestly, his first term, I voted against him. I did not want him, but that 4 years of the first term, that's what got me to start really paying attention to politics. And I started watching it. I was like, why was I so vehemently against this guy? Looking at his policies, looking at his ideas, looking at the fact that he was planning broad stroke things, these 10-year plans that would take forever to implement that could not finish being implemented in his presidency. The fact that he was looking towards the future for that, for the things he was putting. He wasn't doing things for now. He was doing things for then, the eventually. And the only reason I was against him was, 1, I was young, I was uninformed. And 2, I heard his speeches. I saw the press conferences. I heard that same force of personality, that connection he could have to a crowd, that I remember from school, from listening to the recorded speeches from Hitler and that. Like, they didn't show us Reagan stuff, so I wasn't comparing him to Reagan at the time, because I used to be a supporter of Reagan. I used to think he was a good president. Because, again, I was uninformed about politics, and I wasn't a big fan of history, but I've always been a big fan of World War II. And I saw that connection, so I was like, yeah, he's just like Hitler. He spouts absolute nonsense, and everybody listens to him. He gets the crowd on his side by saying nothing. And then he won a Nobel Prize for an idea he had. He never wrote it down. He just said it one time. They're like, yeah, that's the force of personality. This is a man who could say words and win a Nobel Peace Prize for it. And again, the words he said was he advocated for world peace while also justifying why the U.S. must stay at war. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for that. That is absolute Hitler-esque, Reagan-esque, turning a crowd to your side by saying the opposite of the thing and then getting rewarded for it. We need to have peace, but let's send troops everywhere. The world is constantly at war, and that's a bad thing. That the U.S. can fix it by sending the military places. And then I started thinking about it, like, okay, it's a little weird, but then Trump came to office. And it's watching his entire campaign, watching all the debates, watching every time that man spoke, it's like, oh my God, this is so much worse than anything I ever heard come from Obama. This wasn't turning the crowd to your side. This was working them up into a further. This was saying just the right keywords to get the people who never paid attention to politics to pay attention to politics. And then he won. And then it kept going. See, that's the thing. After Obama won, the rhetoric stopped. When he became president, you stopped hearing the absolute nonsense from him. You stopped hearing the vague promises. You stopped hearing him say the things you wanted to hear. And he started doing things. And that's what made me, when it came time for his second term, I voted for him in 2012. Because, like, I want to see how this plays out. I see these policies. I've been listening to what he's been saying for the last 4 years. I've been watching his actions for the last 4 years. It took that first 4 years for me to really get this is how politics are supposed to work. You make the promises, and then you follow through with your actions. And when your actions can't back up your promises, you explain why. You don't come up with a dumb excuse. You don't say, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You explain why. Because you remember one of his big campaign promises was closing down Guantanamo Bay. That never happened. He never made excuses for it. He just explained why it couldn't happen. And it was just simply, there's no place to put these people, but we can't just turn them loose. So it's better to keep operating that prison than either bringing them to the mainland U.S. and putting them and scattering them all across our country, or turning them loose and sending them back to their homelands. And it made sense. It wasn't an excuse. It was a logical reason. But then Trump became president. And you had all these fantastic promises that he had. And the crowds cheering and yelling and all of that. And he won. And then he didn't follow through on a promise. Didn't follow through on a promise. Didn't follow through on a promise. And every time he had an excuse. It was someone else's fault. Well, I couldn't do it because of the Democrats. Or I couldn't do it because they won't let me. They. He had the crowd against him with the nebulous they. The powers that be, they're against me. They won't let me do things. You know, the people love me, but the government is against me. That's what Reagan said. That's what Hitler said. The people love me, but the government won't let me, so I have to do it my way. And this didn't happen because they wouldn't let me. It's their fault. We need to get rid of them.
And when you use they versus us rhetoric, that's when you know the minorities are in trouble.
Yes.
I say it as a joke, but it's also serious. Literally. Whenever you hear that, run!
And I know we're talking a lot about politics right now because that's the way it is. That's America. It's the current state of things. Yeah, I see. I have to point out this one other thing. Like, I hear this all the time. I see it on Facebook all the time. Is the constant, all the MAGA people, the pro-Trump people, like, how come all of you anti-Trump people aren't posting pro-Biden stuff all the time? How come I never see any pro-Biden? We don't fucking like him either. We're all tired of these geriatric fucks running our lives. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to have a different system in this goddamn country. We have a two-party system. The Electoral College only decides between Democrat and Republican. It does not fucking matter if someone from a different party is the better candidate. Every goddamn person in this country, all 330 million of us, can vote for a third-party cabinet. Fuck it. We can vote for Captain Brainworms, RFK Jr. All 330 million of us could fucking write his name on the ballot on November 5th and make him our fucking president. But no, we can't. You know why? Because the Electoral College does not allow the third-party candidates to have a vote. So all the pro-Republican states are going to throw all their votes at Trump. And all the pro-Democrat states are going to throw all their votes at Biden. And because the Electoral College is not split 50-50, we're probably going to get Trump again. Because the states with the most fucking dirt has the most votes. The states that has the most dirt has the least fucking people and the most uneducated people. And those are all the people who support the fucking moron.
Now, to be fair, the media has not been very kind to Biden. And I mean that because he actually has done some good. During the debate, which shouldn't have happened, by the way. It really should not have. I don't know why the fuck they agreed to it. But
well, we did need the election's going to happen in a few months. We did need to have at least one proper debate between the two front-runner candidates. Realistically, we should have had our third candidate there. RFK should have been included. There are three front-runner candidates for president. But again, nobody gives a fuck about the third party.
it's too soon. My point is, they had time. Look, we don't know which one is the technical frontrunner for Republicans. You know what I mean. Technically. But yes, everybody's behind Trump, but moving on. My point is, he has done some good, okay?
He has.
Biden instated a specific dude with the FCC who put back net neutrality. Now it doesn't matter who you pay to have internet access. As long as you pay for a certain level, you will have faster internet. It doesn't matter what website you visit. It'll all be the same speed.
Yes.
Which, it was a big issue approximately 3 years ago, I want to say. Maybe 4.
I think it was 4 when net neutrality ended. I think net neutrality ended, maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago. I want to say it was in the teens. Because it was during Trump's presidency. It was before COVID.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So it had to have been 2017, 2018.
So, Trump gets in office. That's going to go away again. Number 1. Number 2. They're working with CMS in order to pull patents on government-funded drugs, taxpayer paid, that were made so that they can lower the price of them forcibly. This way you won't get insulin costing $200-$300 a dose. They've already worked with one company in order to get it down to $35 for Medicare recipients. But if they can do it with all these other drugs that they're planning to do, imagine the cost savings.
Yes.
And of course, this is going to go away with Trump.
And that's the thing. I can 100% say I do not like Biden as my president. But I can 100% agree that he has done good as a president. And he's done fantastic considering the fact that he inherited an absolute shit show from Trump. And that's the thing. For Trump, everybody always wants to tout what good Trump did. Trump didn't do anything. 90% of the good things that happened under Trump happened within the first 2 years of his presidency. Do you know why those good things happened under the first 2 years of his presidency? Because of Obama's 10-year plan that he started in 2008.
Now, there's more. Remember how Trump was trying to bankrupt the USPS, United States Postal Service?
Yes.
Well, Biden got elected, and he put a huge stop to getting rid of the USPS. He literally told people, start a stamp collection to actually pay. I mean, Trump did. Under Trump, They were like, start a stamp collection. Actually put money into the USPS.
Yeah. That's because, Trump did it, and he appointed a new postmaster general who was an idiot.
Not just that. There were specific laws only the United States Postal Service had to abide by.
Yes, and like they're doing that because that happened towards the end of his term, and that was very specifically to try to curtail voter fraud by the mail-in votes and stuff, which was a lie. Because all it did was cause massive delays in the mail because, like, they removed sorting machines from hundreds of facilities, which made it harder to sort the mail, which makes it harder to deliver on time. Like, we're just now getting to a point where mail is starting to be reliable again. It took 5.5 years.
No. With that.
And again, what Biden pointed out when he became office, that's why he started fixing things, was the post office is the only constitutionally mandated federal agency. You can't take things away from them. The Constitution guarantees that the post office exists.
Now, besides that, they actually changed the Medicare enrollment period so that not everybody had to wait like 2 to 6 months to actually get in.
Yeah, they made it easier to enroll for Medicare.
Now, besides the price of insulin, there's another what's it called? They actually... Hold on. God damn it, I write horribly.
They're trying to impose caps on the insurance companies for how much you can charge for prescriptions, period.
They also pardoned all prior federal offenses for simple weed possession, which everybody agrees was not enough, but still, it was something. Stop criticizing them for not going far enough. They tried. They're trying.
It's just like he did manage to get some form of student loan debt relief passed, even though the Supreme Court blocked him, Senate blocked him, Congress blocked it. Like everybody was trying to block him at every turn. So he had to settle for 20% instead of full, just get rid of student loan debt. But when you think of it, when you do the math, what is student loan debt? It is money that never existed, that the government says you owe because you decided to go to college. So the government gave you non-existent money to pay for college that you have to pay them back with interest. It never existed to begin with. There was no actual money. They didn't print cash to give you, and you sent this big stack of cash. They used fiat currency, which is currency that doesn't exist. They can just eliminate it and keep treating it like it doesn't exist. And hey, it doesn't exist. It does not hurt the economy. It does not benefit the economy. It is literally a net zero loss.
I have a couple of problems with that in terms of the explanation, but we'll leave it as is. Okay.
I know there's a more technical explanation that's right, but in broad layman's terms, what I said is true.
Look, they also provided hundreds of billions nationally in funding to repair roads, bridges, highways. There's even that big project where they're trying to actually get rid of all lead pipes in the U.S.
Yes.
And all of this is good. Where do you hear about it? Nowhere. Everybody argues and says you cannot have President Retard, yes, I've heard this, in the office.
And the argument that Biden is too old. He is 3 years older than Trump. Where he is exactly one presidential term older than Trump.
4 years, not 3.
3.5. It's the difference of months. But you get what I mean. Like, how is 81 too old, but 78 is not?
I don't know. It's fucking arbitrary.
But that's the thing. How are these people effectively arguing that? The difference is 3 years, 4 years? Well, guess what? Jimmy Carter only had one term. He turns 100 this year. Fuck it, let's elect Carter. I'd vote for the peanut farmer.
Sure, why not?
Hey, we might get some housing built.
Like,
He still works for Habitats for Humanity.
technically his what do you call it? His term was one of the most, what's the word?
Prosperous.
Non-adversarial that there was.
Yeah.
So hopefully that 60s energy, 1970s energy
Yeah.
comes back. But besides that, we also had
Like, the only thing that we can blame Carter for is technically OPEC.
okay, yeah.
Like, but when it started, it was a good thing.
A lot of things
Like,
that
like a
started
lot
that
of
way.
things start out with the best of intentions and as great programs, and then they snowball.
Another thing Biden did was he cracked down on the overdraft fees from banks. He
Yes.
made it so hard that banks got rid of them outright so that they didn't have to be investigated by the U.S.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a lot
No.
of them did.
So now they do have fee, but the fees have to be standardized. Like, all banks have to charge the same fee
And the
if
last
they
minute
charge them, and they can't charge them daily.
and the last minute surprise fees from hotels, concert venues, those were also gotten rid of.
Yeah. Like, if they don't tell it to you up front, they can't charge it to you. So, like, Ticketmaster used to be really, like, big on that. Where, like, oh, yeah, we're going to charge you this much for the ticket for this concert, and then it's this much of our processing fee. And then at checkout, all of a sudden the price would go up another $50-$60. And it's like, well, what the fuck's that fee? The convenience fee for online. Like, that fee didn't hit until after I clicked checkout.
Okay,
You
there,
already charged my credit card.
there should be no such thing as a convenience fee because it's online. It's paperless. You're literally saving money. Fuck
Yeah.
you people.
Yeah, now it's been lumped into their processing fee, but now it's an upfront charge. Like, you know, when you go on the Ticketmaster, your ticket's gonna be $150 plus this processing fee plus applicable tax, and then okay, when you hit checkout, the number you saw before you hit the checkout button, before they charged your credit card, is the number you're gonna see after you hit that button. The problem was before it was like, oh yeah, and checkout, I'm done. And then all of a sudden, when you look at your actual credit card charge, where'd that extra $50 go? And then you look at your online receipt, and it's like, oh, what the fuck is this convenience fee? So yeah, he pushed through a legislation to make those go away. Like, you have to tell people up front what you're charging them for, which is bad business. So, of course, that will probably go away if Trump becomes president again, because he wants to run this country like he runs a business. Let's see. 13 of his businesses have gone bankrupt, including 3 casinos. This man is so bad at running a business that is literally stacked, where the odds are stacked against the people going into it, so that they will lose their money and make you money. He ran them into bankruptcy.
Part of me would like to see a documentary on how it's a fucking casino.
There are multiple documentaries you can watch about this, about the fall of the Taj Mahal, forget Amanda. I think, was it the Mandalay Bay? No, the other 2 Trump casinos in Atlantic City. There was the one that he was working with on a Native American reservation, where it was a native casino, and then Trump. So it's like Trump 5 Sands or some shit like that.
People, if you want us to watch any of these, put it in the comments.
Yes, please. Like, I've seen some of them, but I will gladly watch them again to talk about them, because I watched some of these years ago.
Now, another thing that Biden did, is working toward, is to change Social Security taxation so that those making above $400,000 a year actually have to fucking contribute. Because right now, the threshold is up to $160,000. After that, you literally pay the same amount.
Yeah.
So at least this way, they will contribute even more, and hopefully Social Security will get saved.
It's forcing the wealthy to pay their fair share.
Now, part of it is also to increase the minimum Social Security Administration benefit instead of just a cut and dry figure. This way it has to be manually increased and therefore subject to not getting increased. Yeah. Oh, And it's therefore subject to not getting increased now. This way it will get increased by a scaling percentage.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be, if it passes, the more money that goes into it, the more money gets paid out from it. So if they can start getting people who earn more money to start putting more money into it, then they'll be able to start sending more money out of it. But they're not going to start giving more money until they start getting more money.
Now, they also want to increase benefits.
Which is also the right way to do that.
No, I agree. Now, they also want to increase benefits for surviving spouses who abruptly lose 50% of their income when a spouse dies. Now, for future reference, how do you think that would work for thruples and shit, assuming that continues into our 60s and 80s?
That depends on how, technically at the moment, polyamory is still illegal.
True. Wait. No, polygamy is illegal. Polyamory is not. You can date as many people as you want. You just can't marry them.
Yeah. So technically there's no legal benefit then under thruples and that, because the whole survivors thing is like me and Holly are boyfriend and girlfriend. We're a 2-income household. I don't get a survivor's benefit if she suddenly dies in a car accident.
Right.
Or if I die, or the gas station I work at explodes and I die. She doesn't get a survivor's benefit from me because we're not married. But if we were married, one or the other is entitled to a survivor's benefit. And there should be X percentage of the income you make and the income you've paid in taxes. Which makes sense, since I'm no longer paying taxes and I'm also no longer contributing to the household expenses. Some of the money I paid into taxes and retirement and so on that should come out and go to her. And right now, I think that percentage is single digits. I think it's under 10%.
Jesus.
And I think he's trying to increase it to at least 15 to 20%.
Speaking of 15 to 20%, he enacted a minimum 50% corporate tax on large companies who otherwise tended to skirt the taxes with legally gray methods.
Yeah, but there are still ways around that.
There are, I know, but still.
And that's
he's
another
trying.
and that's another thing that will immediately go away. Because part of the Project 2025 tax cuts is to get corporate entities under 20% tax.
By the way, in case you didn't know, under Trump, we were no longer a part of the Paris Agreement. Guess what happened under Biden? We were back in it, baby.
Yes.
Guess what's going to happen when Trump comes back? We're going to leave.
Now, I will say there's one thing. One thing.
No.
Okay. There are a couple of things I agreed with Trump on. But they're few. They're very few. One of them is the NATO thing. Now, I don't believe that we should withhold help from NATO because they don't pay as much as we do. But I do believe they should pay more. And he did actually get other NATO nations to start paying more money in because we stopped paying as much. I kind of think that should continue. But I also think that should end because, again, it's something I've mentioned before in another episode, is the reason that so many other countries in the world, especially developed nations who are usually part of the United Nations and NATO, can afford to give socialized medicine, socialized schooling, where you have these free college, free healthcare. It's because they don't have to spend as much money on the military, because the U.S. does. Like, you're supposed to give a certain percentage of your GDP as your contribution to NATO, and that's your contribution to just funding for all the peacekeeping missions and all of that. And you're supposed to offer so many troops, and you're supposed to pay to buy or just directly build and give so many weapons. And the U.S. leads that head and shoulders above most other countries. And that is technically the rationale behind why we don't have free education, why we don't have free healthcare. is we contribute more money to the world than the rest of the world contributes to the world.
The U.S. as a whole contributed more to the world than the world did to the U.S. I mean, we were literally having our navy all over the place and virtually got rid of all piracy. Okay?
Yeah.
We were protecting convoys and trade routes throughout the world. And recently, under Biden, that had to stop because we're trying to save money, and we're also trying to kind of show people, you kind of need us, buddy.
Yeah. Well, and Biden did also partially back Trump's thing of, you know what? Yeah, the other countries should be paying more money. Which, again, there's one of the few things that's a general agreement on is the rest of the world should be paying for things. But it's the fact that they don't is part of the reason why we don't have the programs that they have in those countries. It's that great example of, well, if we could save that money, we could have these programs. But here's the problem with that. That money that we give to NATO and all that, that is a separate thing. That is part of our budget. We still spend $1 trillion, with a T, trillion dollars a year on our military. That is more than the next 9 nations in the top 10 spending nations combined. We could take a huge chunk, 20, 30, 40% out of our military budget and end world hunger. Because world hunger can be ended for $40 billion. Again, we spend $1 trillion on our military per year. We could literally take 1 year and not pay the military. Just take all $1 trillion of it, give it to the world to end world hunger. And we have paid to end world hunger for the next 100 years.
Okay. Yes. And then that would also give us political leverage to, if you don't
we donate it one time. For 1 year, we take our entire military budget. We just give it to the world to end world hunger. That is ending world hunger for 100 years. And now for that 100 years, we tell the rest of the world, you have to pay for our military. You divide what our military budget for the year across every fucking country on this planet, and we will guarantee that they never starve. That is not extortion. That is a fair trade. We donated the money. We will provide the food because we have a surplus of fucking everything.
Not for long.
But imagine, if we started selling cheese to the rest of the fucking world, we could empty out the billions of tons of cheese that is in the cheese reserve.
Some of those got to be worth a petty penny, too.
Yeah. But, like, we make so much corn, we had to figure out what to do with it, which is what led to the invention of ethanol. Ethanol as a fuel source for cars exists because we plant too much fucking corn in this country.
Yeah.
You know why white people, especially Americans, love mayonnaise so much?
I mean, we have a thirst for...
Half of the state of Illinois, one state of this country, is soybean farms. And each one of our states is equal to 3 or 4 European countries in landmass.
I was going to make a mayo and petroleum joke. You didn't let me.
I mean, you can make your mayo and petroleum joke, but I'm just saying, like, Americans love mayonnaise because we have no fucking choice. We make so much goddamn soybeans, we had to do something with it.
No, it's because we have a thirst for petrol, and we had to get oil somewhere.
But, like, that's the thing. Like, we can go on and on. I know that the list is not exhaustive, but we can just keep going on about the good things Biden has done, while still simultaneously saying, we don't want him to be our president.
But you know
We're
what?
voting for him because we have no fucking choice.
And I'm going to say this. In these 4 years, assuming Biden does get elected, hopefully, really, really hopefully, okay, I will work towards change. I will literally get politically active and literally volunteer at places. Okay? I am sick and tired of this. This doesn't make fucking sense. Send emails. Get on the ground. Grassroots is where it starts. Because
Yeah,
4 more years of Trump will literally bankrupt the soul of this nation.
it will. It absolutely will. It already has to some extent. And the only way we bring about change is to get out and vote. Like, we have proven it in so many grassroots campaigns, so many local elections on state and city officials where people, especially younger people, have turned out in droves to actually vote. And they have made a difference. We need that to keep happening. You need to vote. You need to get out there. You need to vote. And ideally, when you vote, you do so from an informed point of view. Sadly, when it comes to the president, you've got old man A versus old man B, and neither one's a good choice. Just sadly, pick the one you like the most.
Please, for the love of God.
We're not telling you don't vote for Trump. We're not telling you don't vote for Biden. We're not telling you to vote for either one of them. That's your choice. I can honestly say I am voting for Biden because I 100% believe he is the lesser of the two evils. But I do not want him to be my president. I'm doing it because I have no choice.
I feel the same way, but at the same time, like I said again, I'm sick and tired of the two evil bullshit. It's time to get involved and start bringing these political parties back to where they're supposed to be. You and me have argued about politics before. You know I'm not a Democrat or Republican, neither are you.
Right.
We both have at least an idea on what we want, and it's decently similar. Decently. We still disagree on a few things. But that's the whole point. We can talk about things. We don't throw rocks at each other.
No, we don't have to have shouting at each other. We don't have to get super passionate about it. We talk. We're friends. We're friends despite our different religious views. We're friends despite our different political views. We're friends despite our different racial backgrounds and racial views. That's it. At the end of the day, we're friends. We're different. Fuck it. That's what makes us us. Jorge is Jorge. Shaun is Shaun. Unfortunately, we both have to live in this world, and we have to live with each other's choices. I don't have to agree with the choices Jorge makes. He doesn't have to agree with the ones I make. End of the day, we just have to live in the same world. And it's the same for everybody.
And it's a fuck ton more interesting with both of us in it.
Yeah. Because we have these discussions, because we can talk about this stuff. You've heard it here in this episode alone. Yes, I've done the majority of the talking because I have slightly more time to read this shit, to look this stuff up, to do a little bit of research on this, and I follow politics a little bit more closely than Jorge does in general. It's just the nature of things. But you've heard us disagree on things. You've heard us agree on things. You've heard us have similar but different viewpoints on the same thing. That's what makes it interesting. And that's what you're allowed to do. You're allowed to be different. You're allowed to be yourself. Have your viewpoints. Vote for the people you want to vote for. Fucking vote, though.
And please don't just vote. Get out there. If you want to be a politician, go for it. We need new blood, literally.
We do. Like, the only way we get rid of all these ancient, decrepit people who have been running the government since they were young people. Like, remember, some of these people entered office when they were in their 20s and are now in their 80s. The only way we get rid of them is voting against them. As you can't vote against them, run against them. If you are of the minimum age in your municipality, in your city, in your state, in your county to run for public office, and you want to, if you think you can make a change, fucking do it. Run. Get up there, state your platform, be a voice.
And it doesn't have to be senator. It doesn't have to be president. Literally, go vote. Run at your local PTA, if anything.
Yeah,
Your
run
local
for
school
small.
council.
Like, if you truly believe in small government, run for small office. Run for dog catcher. Run for head of sanitation department. Run for fucking alderman if your state has aldermen and things like that. Run for any public office. If you have what is the minimum requirements for office, fucking do it.
And if you're local, fuck it. Talk. Get your ideas out there. Let's listen to you.
Yeah. And with that, I think we are done with today. I want to say happy 4th of July and go out and embrace your freedom. But this 4th of July, July 4th, 2024, is the least free I've ever felt. And I've been in jail.
It might be the most free we're going to have for years to come if a certain orange Chirolini gets into office.
And that is sad. And with that, the only thing I can say, be good to one another.
Keep the faith.
Bye-bye.